Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum, VM Nation. This is going to be truly amazing. We're going to be talking about some of the things that I love most. We're going to be talking about military, veterans. We're going to be talking about recovery, which obviously you know that I love. But we're also going to get into some deep, dark talk, and hopefully we can help save some lives. So guys, definitely hang out, check this out. Make sure you're going to share this out. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, I love my coffee. I drink my coffee every day. And today I made some iced coffee with Soldier Girl coffee. I love the taste of it. I love the energy that I get. So if you love energy, if you love coffee, but if you love a veteran-owned company that's female veteran-owned and only hires veterans to work in the company, definitely check out Soldier Girl Coffee at www.soldiergirlcoffee.com. All right, my brother, what's going on? How are you doing, Mr. Ricky Johnson Jr.?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Man, you know, life is so good. As we were talking before we got on, you know, even though here in New Jersey it's raining out, we can't have the rainbows without the rain.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, they don't realize, you know, that we can't appreciate the good times if we don't have some struggles.
Yeah, without the tragedy, there's no triumph. I try to keep that in mind.
I love it. So tell us, you know, where you come from, where'd you grow up, and what kind of little boy was Ricky?
So, Richard, originally I'm from Southeast Missouri. Right now I reside in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Growing up, I had a pretty good childhood. I had good parents. I was a very active kid. I was athletic. I made good grades. I think I was pretty well liked by my peers. But I was exposed to substance use at a young age. I can still remember my family letting me taste alcohol at the age of like 4, 5, and 6. I grew up in the bars with my dad, my biological father. I lost both my parents to substance use. They're both chronic alcoholics. My mother was 49 and my dad was 52. Also, as a child, I was violated by a family member, which had a very traumatic impact on my life as well. But overall, I think I had a pretty good childhood. I never done without. Both my parents, my stepdad raised me. He was, we're close to this day. Both my parents worked very hard, and despite some of the choices that I made in my life, I never point the finger or blame them for it. But the truth, it impacted my life, and it inspired who I wanted to be. And some of that wasn't in a good way. So,
now, I've had a bunch of people that have come on and I've talked to that have been abused as children.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, if a child is really outgoing after they had the abuse happen, they get really withdrawn. And but now sometimes if the child is really withdrawn, after that, they start acting out.
Yeah.
Did you stay the same, or how did things change?
I don't think I was ever really withdrawn. I was pretty outgoing. I never had a problem socializing with people. Like I said, I think I was pretty well liked by my peers. And I was lost for a long time. I mean, that what happened to me as a kid, it affected my relationship. It affected me throughout the years as far as in my relationships. And, I was a touch me not. I didn't want people to touch me at all. So that impacted my life. Also, as I had a son at a young age as well. I was 17 years old when my son was born. So that also had a very profound impact on my life as well. That was the summer before my senior year.
Now, were you an athlete in school? Were you good in school? Did you like education?
Yeah, I made good grades. I was athletic. I don't want to say typical, but I was the typical teenage boy. I was into girls. I'd go to parties, experiment with alcohol. And I was a pretty good student as well. I had some scholarships to go to college after high school. And it wasn't for athletics, but it was just for scholarships that I'd won through, my local school, through the high school. But I didn't go to college. I needed some structure, some guidance, and discipline. And I joined the Marine Corps. I had a very extreme, competitive, obsessive personality. The Marine Corps was the perfect storm for me. And in the Marine Corps, I think I excelled pretty well. But that entire time, with that extreme personality and substance use, it was not a good mix for me.
All right, so let's hop back because
Sure.
my father left me when I was 3 months old.
Okay.
So I never knew how to be a dad. And
Yep.
when my daughter was born 9 years ago, I was scared, because I grew up as an abused child. I didn't want to abuse my children.
Yep.
And there's books out there, but there's really that oh shit moment,
Yeah.
And for me, I went to every doctor's appointment, and I told my wife, I said, I want to be the first person to change my daughter's diapers.
Yeah.
I want to be the father that, I never had.
Mhm.
But, even though I said that, I'm like, all right, what is a father?
Yeah.
So talk to us about that experience of becoming a father at a young age while you were still dealing with your own trauma.
I was lost. And Richard is if you bring that up, my stepdad and myself are very close, but I never really had that connection of what it was like to have a father in my life. And I struggled being a dad. I mean, I was not always the best example. I was a kid and I was a boy having a baby, and I thought I was a man, and I had no clue as to what I was doing. But I love my son with all that was in me. I tried my best. And as far as what happened to me as a kid, I'm still to this day. I love children, but I'm very cautious with kids. As far as like you mentioned, you never wanted to treat your child the way that you had been treated. So I still carry that with me. As far as I never want a young child to look at me as a creepy individual. And so I'm very reserved with that. But I tried my best at 17 years old. I was so lost, and I needed to grow up. I was very immature.
So now you're 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, because we can be real with each other.
Sure.
Not like anybody's watching this anyway, but when you're 17 years old, you really don't know your asshole from your elbow.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, this child has to eat. It's got to be fed. It's got to be loved. And I don't even feel loved.
Yeah.
So, and then what was the decision to join the Marine Corps, and why the Marine Corps, and what was your recruiting story like?
Sure. So I married my son's mother. I married her. I was 19 years old. I was working a construction job, and I got laid off, and I needed employment like pretty quickly. Just the Marines, something about the Marine Corps appealed to me, that extreme, competitive, aggressive nature. I wanted to challenge myself. There really was no recruiting to it. I went to a Marine recruiter, and he started giving me the spiel, and I'm like, I know what I'm getting into. And I signed up, and, the rest was history. I was 19, went to San Diego to boot camp, and I was in the Marine Corps. I was a 1391. I was a bulk fuel specialist. I never saw combat. I never was deployed. I was an air wing Marine. I pumped gas. That's what I did. So my recruiting story wasn't some drawn out significant thing. I knew what I was getting into, and that's what I chose. And plus the uniforms appealed to me. That was another thing.
Well, for me, I love my Marines.
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, you guys have the best uniforms ever. Hands down, no questions.
Yeah.
But also, you guys have that mentality. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Sure.
And I made the mistake of one time calling somebody an ex-Marine, and he kind of chewed my ass.
Sure.
So, what was it like going into go to basic training? Did you really take to the Marines?
I was scared to death. I mean, I'm from a small town, 3,500 people in the Midwest. Never been away from, I've been away from home, but not to that extreme nature. I was 19 years old, just had a kid, married. I was scared. Got to San Diego. It was a culture shock, but I mean, it, looking back, the things that stressed me out at 19 to 23, now it wasn't really, looking back now and considering the things I've gone through since then, it wasn't really stressful, but at that time it was very stressful to me. I thought I was walking into a living hell when I got to boot camp. It was pretty intense, but I knew what I was getting into. I tried to prepare for it the best I could. I thought I was in decent shape, but when I got there, I saw that I really wasn't. That's another thing, Richard, about, I grew up and I was an athletic kid, and in my mind, I thought I was pretty good. from a small town. But then when I got to San Diego and I got in the Marine Corps, I was around some guys that were some truly great athletes and very physically fit, and it pushed me to get better. But it quickly humbled me for sure.
So now you said from 19 to 23.
I did 4 years and 8 months. Yes.
Now, because you had such a hard time growing up, this was a guaranteed source of income.
Yep.
Everybody knows that even though we're hardcore and hoo-hoo, we get paid on the 1st and the 15th. Yep. We get TRICARE. We get all that good stuff. So what was your thought process in getting out? And then when you did get out, I've talked to now 380 interviews. Mm-hmm. When guys and girls get out of the military, they lose the camaraderie. They lose the mission. Mm-hmm. They lose a job.
Yep.
And like my friend Sergeant Nick Valentine talks about, is when you step off base, the military does not give a shit about you anymore, and the phone stops ringing.
Yeah.
So why did you get out, and what was your transitioning out like?
So the reason I got out, I was a mama's boy. I was a homebody. I missed home. My ex-wife and I at the time, we had done divorced, and I was missing my son. I was not getting to see him grow up. And I was tired of it, stressed out. While I was in the Marine Corps, I got my first DWI. And I had a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, I discharged honorably. I was a good Marine, but I was ready to go home. The transition to me, it was difficult. Looking back, I didn't really understand what a transition was. Because I was young. But now that I look back, the Marine Corps, I mean, they paid well. I was taken care of. Everybody knew their job. There's the brotherhood, the camaraderie, and the transition. That's our identity for all of us. And then when you leave that behind, it's a difficult pill to swallow. We're coming back into a very chaotic world. It's unstable. Everybody's doing their own thing, So it was looking back. That transition was difficult. And Rich, the way that I framed the transition was a comfortable misery. And when I speak to people about it, what I mean by that is you can be in a very toxic, destructive environment, like an addiction, a marriage, a job you hate. When you spend so much time in it, even if you hate it, you develop these skills and tools to help you to survive, and you become good at it. The thought of leaving that behind, it's the fear of the unknown. It's overwhelming, and we doubt our abilities. And I relate that to even within my addiction as well. I see this with the homeless population. When I did outreach, if you have an individual been homeless 5 or 10, 15 years, and even though we know there's a better way, I can be like, hey, brother, we can get you into housing or employment, but you got to leave this encampment behind. 9 times out of 10, they're going to stay where they're at because they're comfortable in it, because that transition is very intimidating. So that's what it was like for me.
And I agree, like I used to speak a lot in rehabs, prisons, and, everybody would think, why would a guy go back to prison for the 15th time?
Perfect example.
Well, because, you become institutionalized.
Yeah.
You know what time breakfast is, lunch is, dinner is. Yep. You got 3 hots in a cot. You may not be safe, but for you, they consider that safe.
Absolutely. It's a structured routine environment, and prison's a perfect example of that. A lot of times we're part of something bigger than ourselves, and that becomes our identity. And like I said, the thought of leaving that behind, it's scary and hard to do, So yeah, that's a great example.
So now you're 23 years old, 23, 24.
Yeah.
Your child's got to be about 5 now?
Yeah, roughly around that age.
So then now you got to support him. You got to support yourself. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of times, I say that from what I've learned, obviously I'm not a professional. I'm only a 9th grade dropout. But that trauma, when an adult acts out, it's usually because of stuff that happens between the ages of 3 and 13. Mm-hmm. Then you add alcohol and drugs to the mix.
Yep.
And it becomes a perfect storm. And really, nobody can tell you how to get out of the perfect storm unless somebody's been in it.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with all this? Because I'm sure you're still dealing with all the trauma, and now you're getting out of the military. You got to find a job. You
Yeah.
got to support your son. So what was that lifestyle like?
Chaos. I was terrible. I mean, Richard, I'll be up front with you. I went head first and Richard, nobody peer pressured me. I was a curious individual. I like to go fast, mentally, and just I like using substances, and I went head first into methamphetamine, alcohol, and pills as soon as I discharged. That was my priority over everything, including my son. For me, one of the worst things to happen was I was able to draw unemployment for like a year and a half or however long it was. It was a long time, and that enabled me. I mean, it made me. I was lazy. I lost that structure, that routine, that discipline, and I would find a job here and there, and because I couldn't stay sober, I couldn't maintain it. And if it wasn't for my parents, if it wasn't for my son's mother, and just people helping me out, I wouldn't have been able to take care. I wouldn't have been able to take care of my kid by myself. But it's just because of the way I was living, and I'm not proud of that. My substance use came before everything. My son saw me get high. I let him get high in front of me. I sold narcotics in front of him. I had him exposed to some very foul environments. There was many times he saw me so intoxicated, drunk, covered in my own piss. Those things never leave me. But that was my priority for the next 10 years after I discharged. That came before everything. So I was not a good example of a father. I was irresponsible. I was reckless. It was not a good time for me at all, or my son.
Now, a lot of people, when they get involved, thank God I never did meth. But, I was a big LSD guy. That was my drug of choice, alcohol. And I almost got charged to do 5 years for grand larceny. But thank God the guy that I actually robbed actually saved my ass. So I had a kind of an angel that was there for me. But a lot of people that get messed up, especially with meth, like I got a friend, his name is Tim Cross. He's clean, I think now going on 4 or 5 years, but it totally messed him up. He was down to like 130 pounds, lost all his teeth. I mean, he was, jacked up. Yep. So what kind of effects did it have on you physically? And did you go to jail or anything like that? Because a lot of people, once you're into that much of an addiction, you can't hold down a job. So you have to steal or do other things to feed the dragon.
Absolutely, 100%. I was a liar. I was a thief. I manipulated and deceived people. I stole from my dad, my stepdad, to get high. I stole from my own kid to get high. Okay. I was not a good person. I was locked up multiple times. I'm a 3-time convicted felon. I have 2 felonies for methamphetamine possession. I have a felony for multiple DWIs. I lost my license. Rich, in the past 25 years, I've not been able to drive for 17 of those years. My last DWI, I lost my license for 10 years. I get those back in 2022. I was very reckless behind the wheel of a vehicle. Law enforcement done their job with me by taking my license away. I don't have any bitter feelings toward law enforcement. I made them do their job with me, and I'm thankful for that today. I spent 5 years on felony probation. I paid into the system close to $16,000 in fines and court costs. I went to prison for about 4 months. I probably done about a year of county jail time, just in and out of jail, over and over. As far as the physical aspects of it, I've been fortunate as far as it never affected my teeth. I lost a lot of weight, but even when I was under the influence of meth, I tried to maintain some form of health as far as hygiene, and I would try to make myself eat, brush my teeth and stay hydrated. There was something about me that I always I cared about how I looked. Did I always look the best? Absolutely not. I mean, I got down to pretty small a few times, but physically, I pray to God I don't have any physical, problems in the future. But as far as like the amount that I've seen other people go through, and Richard, one thing for me was I never shot up methamphetamine with a needle. My method was I would smoke it or snort it. So a lot of times when I've seen the people put it in their vein is when they start experiencing a lot of physical side effects to it.
All right. Now, for me, and I think most addicts that are in recovery, they can actually go back to that day where they had their come to Jesus moment.
Yep.
They remember they can transform right back to that moment. And for me, it was the guy that I robbed was a police officer, and he gave me a choice. He said, you can either go to jail for 5 years for grand larceny, or you can go to AA for 90 days and 90 meetings in 90 days. And I hit something like 300 meetings in a row.
Yeah.
And that's since 1989, and I haven't had a drink or drug since.
Awesome.
That was one of my come to Jesus moments.
Yeah.
Take us back to the day before your come to Jesus moment, and then
Sure.
the day of your come to Jesus moment.
So the day before, it's been about around 8 years ago, roundabout. I think I was 32 or 33. I can't remember the exact date. In this time period, I was living in this place called the CSC Center. It's like a jail, but you can leave and go to work. I was working at a factory, and I was thankful I was thankful when I got to that CSC Center because I was sober for about a month, and I finally had some structure. I'd been homeless for a couple of years. When I say homeless, I was couch surfing. I wasn't living under a bridge or nothing like that. At the CSC Center, when I was in this factory, I was working in this factory. I got back around the same environment, the same group of people that were using meth, and I got sucked back in. I fell back into it. Probably the worst that I'd ever been, to be honest with you. And the day prior to I was working at this factory, I was about to go full time. They were going to hire me, and I was going to take a urinalysis. And I knew this urinalysis was coming, and I still stayed high the day before. I went in, worked, and got off work to go take the drug test. And I failed it miserably, and I got fired on the spot. When I got fired on the spot, that was my coming to Jesus moment. I cried. I thought to myself, man, I'm so sick of this shit. And Richard, I ended up in a rescue mission. Okay. I had 3 changes of clothes to my name. And this rescue mission is when the transition took place in my life. I said, God, if you get me out of this pits of hell, I'll always get back to the next man. I'll never doubt you when things don't go my way. And I'll always give you credit when I'm blessed. And I stood on that prayer and I meant it. And that was my coming to Jesus moment for me. And I read your post the other day, and like you, meeting my wife saved my life. She changed everything for me. She's a huge part of my story. She was working at a building down the street from the rescue mission I was living at. We crossed paths, and she believed in me. She helped me to see something in myself that wasn't there. I'm married way out of my league. My wife's got 2 master's degrees, and I got 3 felonies. So we're like the yin and the yang. But yeah, meeting my wife at 100%. Prior to meeting her, my way of doing things was proven to fail. And it was like God said to me, Ricky, listen to this woman, let her guide you and let her lead you. And that's what I did. And I humbled myself, and I let myself be vulnerable enough to listen to this amazing woman, and it changed my life.
Now we're going to talk about some hard stuff.
Sure.
I'm a suicide survivor. I attempted suicide Memorial Day 2012, but God had other plans. Now, you are a victim of suicide because of your son.
Absolutely, yes.
So, and I want to talk about that, because as we were talking about before we got on the show, we're losing. I think I interviewed somebody, and they were saying that 5,000 adolescents every day in the United States attempt suicide.
Yes.
So that's just adolescents. So imagine the adults.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about your story, and then what you're doing now to help others. So take us back and talk to us about what went on and what was going on.
Sure. So Richard, for me, I was in and out of my son's life for, the 10 years I was in active addiction. I was a horrible example. Make the long story short, on December 12, 2015, I get a phone call. My 18-year-old son went to a city park and he hung himself. He took his own life. Okay. Do I blame myself for my son's death? Many days I do, but I can tell you for a fact that my behaviors impacted his mental health. The broken promises, the letdowns, the lies. I put my addiction in front of him several times. I stole from him. And the reason I share that with people is because the way we treat people matters. My son, he just felt like he didn't have any worth or value. I knew he was struggling at this time when he took his life. I was sober at the time, and I was able to be a good father to him for about 2 years, the best that I could be. And we were regaining. I was regaining his trust again. Things seemed to be going smooth. Him and his girlfriend, they broke up. There's a lot of different things that contributed to it. With my son, what I share with everybody is, looking back, there were red flags. At the time, I didn't see it. I didn't want to believe it. But looking back, my son went through this extreme behavior change. He was very depressed and in a dark state for several weeks. And then in a matter of like a few days, he was very happy. He was at peace, upbeat. He wrote me a letter. He wrote me a suicide letter to me and my dad. He cleaned his room, things that he never did as far as cleaning his room. That was a very extreme behavior change. Looking back, he was at peace with what he was going to do. He knew that he wasn't going to hurt anymore, and that was a red flag. And the reason I share that with people is, I'm not saying if somebody has this extreme behavior change, they're thinking of self-harm, but it's not a bad idea to text somebody and be like, "Hey, Richard, just want to check on you, brother. Is everything okay?" We all need connection. We all need to feel like we matter to somebody. And a simple text message or a phone call, it could absolutely save somebody's life.
One thing I just want to talk about with talking about that, I wrote my book last year or 2 years ago, and the last 2 chapters are about what addiction actually looks like, not what you think it looks like. And then what suicidal ideations actually look like, not what you think it looks like. And you're right on point with my point exactly, is that it's not what you think.
Yeah.
Who would ever, I'm sure that Robin Williams' wife would have never thought that her husband would be hanging in a closet the next morning.
Yeah.
So, talk to us again. And I want to harp on it.
Sure.
Because I want people to know some of the red flags that they can look for even today, tomorrow, in the future, whether it's their children, themselves, or even their husbands or wives. So please talk about that again.
Absolutely. So Richard, and when I say this, I want people that's listening to understand, I don't blame any one thing on my son's death more than I do myself. I'm just sharing with you what I saw transpire and what probably contributed to it. I was the parent when I was in substance use. I let violent video games, violent movies, and music babysit my son. My son was obsessed with that stuff. I'm not saying that pushed him to do what he did, but when we look at death nonstop, we become desensitized to it. And, put that in the mind of a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid. I think a lot of it was he was desensitized to death. Am I saying that's why he did what he did? Absolutely not. I'm just saying, guys, if you've got kids, be careful with what you're letting your kids take in, because it's going to come out. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but a lot of times what we see and hear, it comes out through our behaviors. Those are one of the things that I look back on that I probably I know I could have done a lot better job with. And, Richard, for me, it's not about being the perfect parent. It's about being present. And I was one of those people that I wasn't always present. Substance use. I would tell my son, I love you more than anything, but my actions spoke louder than my words. I was putting substance use in front of him. It's just, it's simple thing. It's just simple things to pay attention to. Extreme behavior changes. It's just keep it simple like that.
So, what was your life like the day of, and then of course the days after?
Sure.
When we have to, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and he always talks about how you turn your mess into your message. So talk to us about that, and talk to us about how it shaped you into what you're doing now.
So my son's death killed me, but inspired me to be a better person. It holds me accountable. Every single day when I wake up, I'm very aware of how my actions and behaviors can impact somebody in a positive or a bad way. And I think about it every day before I leave my house. It never goes away. The day my son took his life, it knocked the shit out of me. I couldn't breathe. I was like, he had been talking about taking, he had some mental health struggles prior to that. And Richard, probably about a year and a half prior to that, I was very ignorant. My way of thinking was very backwards. I had not a good way of thinking. And when he had mentioned, he was going to take his life, my very ignorant way of thinking, I said to him, well, if you think that's going to help something, then do it. That's what I said that. That never leaves me. It was a very stupid comment. Am I saying that contributed to what he did? Not necessarily, but looking back, it was a very stupid, cold thing to say, and I didn't know any better. And but due to my son's death, it inspired me to be a better person. And Richard, there's days when I wake up discontent, selfish, and I refuse to take out on other people what I'm going through. So I'm always searching for my reasons of why. Like, why am I doing this today? You're my reason why. Just being able to do this. I speak on Camp Lejeune probably 2 or 3 times a month. I spoke to probably 80 groups of Marines. So what inspired me to do this was I started doing outreach on social media. And when I say outreach, I was just sharing with the entire world everything that I'd done. Yes, I did this. I got high in front of my kid. I stole. I was very transparent. I didn't make excuses and point the finger. That was humiliating to me, but it was liberating, and it gave me strength. And by me doing that, other people saw that as like, you know what, he's taking responsibility for all these things. I can do the same thing as well. I started public speaking. I was terrible. I started speaking into an iPad in a mirror, and I stuttered very bad, and I still stutter at times. And Richard, I'm not the greatest speaker, but I'm going to show up every time I'm invited somewhere, and I'm going to give people the best that I have. What I knew how to do was I knew how to persevere and be resilient. And to persevere and be resilient, it doesn't take talent or gift. It's getting back up over and over. And I knew how to do that. I knew how to inspire people. What I mean by inspire people is be who we say that we are, practice what we preach, personify what we teach. I knew how to do that, and I carry that to this day. I care to be a good example to people. I care to be, the person you see on this podcast. I care to be the same guy in the gym. Everywhere I go, I want to be the same person. I want people to look at me and be like, what, Ricky's who he says that he is. I want to be like that guy, and that helps hold me accountable. And Richard, when I started public speaking, anywhere that I got invited to, I would show up. I mean, I would speak to 10 people or 10,000, wherever I'm asked to come, I would do my best to get there. And that's how all this started for me. It just gives me a sense of worth and purpose, and I feel like I'm making a difference and giving back. I refuse to let my son's life be in vain, I'm always going to speak for him.
So, how do we find you? How can we book you to come and speak? How can we support your mission?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook as Ricky Johnson Jr. I also have a public page. This page is brand new to me, and I'm still learning the public figure page. It's also Ricky Johnson Jr. That's how you can find me. And Richard, for me, I'm going on a speaking tour in January, Missouri. I've never requested a fee. Because I don't know what to request. But when people bless me, it allows me the opportunity to keep doing this, and I do this full time now. Like I said, I travel all over. My hometown in Missouri has been so supportive of me. When I go home this next time, it's like the 4th time that I've traveled home. I'm speaking 16 times in like 6 days. So this is what I do full time now.
And, for people out there like me and you, we public speak, I'm an author, top rated podcast. But when we're in recovery, we kind of are always looking to pay it forward. But unfortunately, we cannot bless others if our cup is empty.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we have a struggle, asking people for money.
Yep.
Because we're taught in the program to, just pay it forward.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, we have to eat.
Yeah.
We got to keep the lights on. You got to be able, and we cannot, give. We cannot help that homeless guy if we're homeless ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I can 100% relate to that. When these high schools contact me and ask me what my fee is, I'm like, I don't really know what to say because I don't want to insult them. But at the same time, I don't want there to be some expectation of me having to be there for 4 or 5 hours. So I'm just like, whatever you feel called to bless me with, I can continue blessing other people, and we'll work with that. So, and it's worked out for me. I'm sure there's going to come a time when I might have to set a fee, But as of now, it's been, I've been taken care of. God's blessed me. I have no complaints. I'm where I'm supposed to be at. So,
well,
yeah.
Ricky, I just want to say thank you, brother. And like I said before we even got on the call, out of everything, I'm just grateful that you're a brother in Christ.
Yeah, you too, brother. I appreciate you.
And if I can ever do anything, guys, if you're listening, definitely check out his Facebook page. Definitely check out the new page that he has, Public Figures. Book him to speak. Have him come on your shows. It'll definitely be worth it. My life is so much better now that Ricky is in it. So I just wanted to say that. I want to thank our sponsor, Soldier Girl Coffee. Guys, I love my coffee. I'm drinking it as we speak. And if you love supporting veterans, especially female veterans, that she has dealt with a lot of PTSD issues also, but she's, like you said, she's getting up, she's showing up, and she's putting in the work. So definitely check out Soldier Girl Coffee. All right, guys, if you like everything that we talked about, make sure you leave a comment, subscribe, maybe share this, because maybe there's somebody in your life that is struggling mentally. Maybe this will help them, and maybe somebody out there needs to listen to the red flags, and maybe we can save a life if you just share this.
So, Richard, one more thing before I get off here. Guys, anybody listening, I want you to know that my intention not to insult you, to shame you, or judge you. We all make bad choices, but the way that we recover is what creates who we're to become. My whole intention is to give back to you the gift that was given to me, and that's a gift of hope. And I'm going to leave you this quote before Richard closes. If you guys have a vision or a goal, if you're going through a transition or whatever it is, the most important step's the very first step. You don't have to be great from the beginning, but you must begin to become great. So thanks again, Richard.
And I love that because, a lot of people I don't know where to start. I'm afraid to start, but you got to realize that, I'm a big sports geek, always have been. And since you're from North Carolina, Michael Jordan got cut from his high school team.
Yes.
And he was a rookie. He became a rookie before he became MJ.
Yep.
Tom Brady got picked 199th pick, and now he's the GOAT. So everybody's got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And today is the day to decide to start.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, remember vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. Catch you guys on the flip. All right, Ricky, have a great week, brother.
All right, you too, brother.